Hi, everybody. How you doing? Happy Monday. Hope everyone's doing well. Let me say hi to everybody. Hi, Molson Man. Hello, Mrs. O, Team Psych Ward, Cement Shoes, Momo, Heather, whatever. Team Psych Ward, good to see you. Welcome, 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 welcome. Glad everybody's here. Oh, I'm glad you got your sound issue fixed, Molson Man, because I was like, well, I can hear it, but that doesn't mean that you guys can always hear it. So I put it on my phone and I was like, well, I can hear it. So, okay, this week, instead of trying to play a video through StreamYard, you know how you can share a video. And I uploaded the exhibit video to my YouTube channel, right? And I'm just going to do it. Um, you sure did, Mrs. O. Bless your heart. Thank you for doing that, babe. I appreciate it. That is commitment. Um, Instead of like playing it, like sharing a video file through StreamYard, I uploaded it to the channel. So hopefully that will alleviate any potential snafus like we had last week. Because StreamYard's just sometimey, and I think you can get away with like a couple of minute video, like an intro video or whatever. But as far as like sharing it that way, it just doesn't work. So tonight, what we're going to talk about is the events of November 14th, 1974. Okay, and I want to caution everyone right in here and now that this is hold on just a second. This is mature subject matter. It may be triggering for people. It deals with death and the death of children. And there are some controversial things and opinions that surround this case. Why can't I find my freaking thing that I wanted to? Here we go. So here is your trigger warning. It does contain potentially sensitive content for people who may be upset by it. Okay, that this is your official warning. There you are. All right, I'm taking it away. So like I said, hey, Christine G, that's me. Hey, Max 2002. So, okay, the trigger warning. Let me say this. When I put together the intro video for this episode, for this series, right? I went to my daughter and there was 2 song choices, and I made her watch the whole video with both song choices, right? And then that's the one she picked. But she told me, she said, "Mom, you really ought to put up some type of warning before you start actually talking about the case." Because, and I quote, "It may not be a problem now, but if you blow up, it could be. Then people will complain." And I was like, "I don't think I'm going to blow up." And she said to me, "You don't know." And I said, "You're right." But that was her suggestion. And I appreciated it, and I took it under advisement. And, when it's like a running joke that I'm forever late about the trigger warnings. So I'm trying to a little self-improvement here and get ahead of the ball and warn everybody that there is potentially triggering content coming. Also, the way that I'm going to present this case is the way that I present all of the cases that I do, right? So I'm going to tell you the things that I found and lay it all out for you guys. And then we can talk opinions, because this case definitely has 2 very staunch camps. On the one hand, there are the people that, oh, wow, Mo, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's not that doesn't show up on StreamYard, so I can't highlight it. Mo gifted um a award case studies membership, you guys, and Nonstop Mom 36H was the winner. So yay! Congratulations and thank you, Mo. That was so sweet of you. Um, okay, so now I forgot what I was saying because I got distracted by that. Hold on, let me think. Oh, there's two very staunch camps. One camp really believes that Butch DeFeo is the sole perpetrator of this crime. He acted alone, he had no help, and he was always the terror in the family. Okay. Then there is the other camp, and the other camp believes that it is very possible that Butch DeFeo had help, specifically his older sister, Dawn, and that there are strong mafia ties to this case. And for me, I'm going to just present it, and then once we get do all the I do all the presenting, then then I'll give you guys my opinion. Um but that's kind of how I want to do it. And I also want to tell you guys that um I want to give a special shout out to Christine G, that's me, because she took the intro that I had for that I made for the channel and made it 11 billion times better. And I so greatly appreciate her doing that for me. It was such a wonderful surprise to wake up to this morning. And after we got off the live last night, I played her the intro to the Defeo case, and she gave me some really awesome suggestions. So next time I go live, look for a little spiced up intro, same but better and improved upon. And then the other thing that I want to talk about is just as a reminder, and since we're doing the case tonight, I want to remind everybody. So I want to do something for my members. I'm going to give you a wrench. Watch this. Now you got a wrench for reals now. Okay. So, I wanted to thank the members because you guys have supported me since I started the channel and been here every live, every premiere, cheered me on, patted me on the back, encouraged me, and I can't thank you enough for that. I really cannot. I can't even really properly convey in words how much your support has meant to me. I have it has. It's meant the world to me. I really would not keep doing this if it wasn't for you, I promise, as I've been getting very frustrated sometimes and, doubtful in myself. So, you guys' encouragement has really made all the difference and pushed me to keep going, and for that, I thank you. I really do. And so to that end, this is what I'd like to do. So, I went and looked at the YouTube studio, and I have 3 tiers, but, the majority of my, members really only belong to 2 of the tiers, either the whole club, right? Or the 11 billion club. And I've got 2 members in the 50 1100 club. So this is what I'm going to do. That in the next 2 days, release 2 I will release a video for the 50 1100 and the um oh my god, I can't even think. 4, okay? And that's gonna include some, exhibits that I didn't show in tonight's episode or in the previous episode that'll have and, I'll make you guys a video and put it all together for you. And then I'm going to do a members only live where it will only be visible to the members of the, 11 billion club first. And then after I've done that live, I'm going to give it like a week, maybe 3 or 4 days, something like that, because that way it'll give people a chance who are in the 11 billion club who weren't able to be there live. It'll give them a chance to see it first. And then what I will do is I will have the video public. But I just want to do something nice to thank you guys for becoming members and for supporting me. But I don't want to make people feel like they're obligated to have a membership and that they're not going to get the same content. You know what? I don't want to leave anybody out, because I know what that feels like to be a subscriber to a channel and not a member. And I don't want to do that, especially because all of you guys that are here have really been here from day one. And that I appreciate, like I said, probably more than I will ever be able to accurately convey into words. I really, I just, oh, welcome Amelia Sparkles to the Hall Club. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And then there was something else I was going to tell you guys, but whatever that was, I have forgotten. So let me, without further ado, oh, well, hello, wait a minute. This isn't going to work. Let me open a new tab and go to YouTube so I can start sharing this video. Of course, this video, all it is there's no sound to it. It's nothing like special. It's just, you know, like a visual aid, if as it were. And that way, excuse me, you know, you guys can see some of the stuff that I'm talking about. But the video that I put together for the members will have music, and I will narrate it. So you know, it's not just, you know, but it'll be some. I just want to thank everybody. I'm just so grateful for you guys. I really am. I feel like I'm now making it awkward, and so I'm just going to be quiet about it at this point. All right, hold on. Oh wait, that's not going to work. Hold on. How am I going to do this? I'll do it like this. Close this. All right. Give me just a second because it's a buffering. All right. Just don't be so anxious, YouTube. Calm down. Let me get over here to share the screen. Sheesh. YouTube's just like, it's a whole minute and 10 seconds. Let me play it now. And I'm like, no. All right, let me make this full screen and add it to the stream. Okay. So the way that I decided to do this, you're not all that late, Amelia. I actually started at 9:30. So you're fine. You probably, all you missed was me, you know, rambling on as I always do. And so you didn't really miss anything. I was, okay. So, I forgot. Okay. So the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to start with the evening of November 13th. Is it 13th? Cripes. Let me look. What is wrong with me? 14th. Is it 13th or 14th? What is wrong with me? I don't even remember now. I feel kind of stupid right now. Yeah, November 14th. My bad. Hi, Vanessa J. Good to see you. Welcome. Okay. I'm going to start with the evening of November 14th, 1974, and then we're going to move through all of it, okay? And it is a lot. So now if would be a very good time to get comfy, get some snacks, get your favorite beverage. I know I have some water here because I'm already parched and I've barely been talking. All right, and here we go. So let me make this full. Let me put me over here. All right. Now, this is the timeline according to Suffolk County, okay? And this is a rough timeline, okay? It's not exact. Um, there are some documents available online, but they are very few and far between, and none of them were real easy for me to get. No, this happened November 14th, 1974. So let me tell you what happened, okay? So at 6:30 p.m., Butch busts into Henry's bar. It's just down the street from the Defeo house, okay? And he is, upset. He's screaming, yelling, crying, just he's upset. And he busts in the door and he said, my somebody has killed all of my family. They're all dead. Come with me, come with me, come with me. He's all in a panic, okay? Hold on just a second. Let me make sure I'm saying this right because it's kind of hard to understand only because it was November 13th. Yes, November 13th. You're right. Okay. It's kind of it is so it's the early morning of December 13th. So this is 6:30 p.m. December 13th. And it goes into the next day, which is the 14th. So there we go. Okay, now I'm on track because this was a little confusing for me too. All right. So, hey, first, last, welcome. All right. So Butch comes into the bar and he's, real upset and his family is all dead. And so Bobby Kelsky, Joey Yeswit, and John Altieri get into Butch's Buick, his 1970 Buick Electra 225. All right. And they go over to the house at 112 Ocean Avenue. All right. Now, Butch does not go in the house. Okay. He stays out by the car. But Bobby and Joey and John, they do go into the home and they find that the front door is unlocked. They enter through the front door and they see that Shaggy, the dog, the family dog, is tied up inside the house in the kitchen to the kitchen door, the door that leads to the outside from the kitchen. Okay. So then they make their way upstairs. Bobby does. All right. Bobby goes upstairs and first he sees Ron Defeo Sr. and Louise Defeo. And then he finds Allison, Mark, John, and then Dawn, okay, is last. So Joey Yeswick calls 911, and this is what he says, quote, "I don't know what's happened. Kid came running in the bar. He says everybody in the family was killed, and we came down here." Okay? So about 6:50 p.m. is when he makes the 911 call. Now, the police are dispatched, and initially, the first officer on scene is Officer Kenneth Gregunski. He's from the Amityville Village Police Department, okay? And he hears Butch scream, quote, "I'm not going back in that house," okay? So he decides at that point to call the Suffolk County homicide, all right? So they are dispatched. And the first detective that speaks to Butch is Detective Randazzo, sorry. Um, and Butch tells him that this guy named Louis Fellini, who is a quote supposed mafia hitman. All right, that's who did it. So at this point, what's happened is the Suffolk County homicide has been dispatched, and at this point, there's the neighbors are out. The media has been alerted. Um, and they end up setting up sort of a base of operation next door at the neighbor's house. And that's where they take Butch. Butch actually is escorted out of the home. And what they end up doing then is they put Officer Gerginski in charge of the crime scene, as far as who comes in and out, who was there, all of that thing. So he's in charge of the crime scene log. And he does actually a pretty good job of that. All right. So the press is there, obviously. The neighbors are there. They've moved Butch over to the next door neighbor's house. Now, there are some accounts that go into a little bit more detail than that. And the two sources of my information, okay, were based on High Hopes, the Amityville Murders, which is a book. It's written by Gerard Sullivan and Harvey Aronson. And that book, the movie Amityville Murders, that was released in 2018, that movie is based on that book. The other source that I went to was the Shattered Hopes, which I gave you guys, and I'll put all these in the description, okay? And that documentary is based on the book The Night the Defeos Died by Rick Osuna. So some of these are more detailed than others. So, okay. This part of it comes from High Hopes, the Amityville Murders. All right. So when they end up taking Butch Defeo and Bobby Kelsky down to the 4th precinct. Okay. And the reason that they do this is because Butch did say at the scene that he felt like it was this guy named Fellini, Louis Fellini, who was a mafia hitman, right? So they take him and Bobby down to the 4th precinct, mostly for protective custody, essentially. Okay. And the two detectives that interview Butch first are detectives George Harrison and Detective Joseph Napolitano, okay, at the 4th precinct headquarters. And this is what Butch told them. Butch said that Fellini had lived with the DeFeos briefly and knew of an area in the basement that Butch and Ron Sr. stored cash and gems. Okay. And this account is taken from Detective Sullivan's notes that Butch was questioned and he was very intent on cooperating and helping. He even admitted to some petty robberies that he and his friends had taken part in. He ended up being allowed to sleep. And then at that point, Detective Harrison and Napolitano returned to the crime scene. And that is when they located the 35 caliber ammunition in Butch's third story. His bedroom was on the 3rd floor in the closet. Okay. And Butch's friends would even confirm that he was a gun fanatic. Okay. So then on the morning of November 14th, 1974, okay, detectives Gaziloff, Harrison, and Napolitano Napolitano. They wake Butch up, and Harrison reads him his rights. And Butch is like, you don't have to do that. Go get Fellini. He's the guy you want, not me. And then Butch then claims Fellini woke him up at gunpoint and forced him to accompany him while he killed each member of the family. And Butch said he discarded the evidence in a sewer in Brooklyn. And then Detective Rafferty says, quote, did it really happen that way? And Butch says, no. Well, let me quote. No, it all started so fast. Once I started, I just couldn't stop. It went so fast. Okay. So that is from the book, High Hopes, the Amityville Murders. Let me push play on this. Okay. Where's I have to do it over here. All right. All right. Now, at 1:00 in the morning, the autopsies on the Defeo family are performed. At 2:30 a.m. is when the box of ammunition was located. At 9 a.m. on the 14th, Butch has read his rights and he waives them, and then he ends up confessing and then is charged with the 6 counts of murder. Okay. And then this is the diagram of the Defeo, not the entire home, obviously, but just where each body was located and the position that they were found in. These are all of the crime scene log. This is who showed up, when they showed up. So it was a detailed list. And for the amount of people that were there, okay, for the amount of people that were there, hey, Aussie Girl Jen, good to see you. Jody, it's cool. Good to see you too. For the amount of people that were gathered outside of this crime scene, they did keep pretty good control of the crowd and a pretty good log of everybody that was there. Okay. Now, this part comes from the Shattered Hopes documentary. Okay. And in this documentary, I'm only going to talk about, like, this is part 2 of the documentary. I'm only going to talk about probably like the first, it's like a 2.5 hour documentary. I think I'm only going to be talking about like the first half of it, because after the first half of it, um, it's more about the trial, and I wanted to split that up too because there's so many other theories, and this part was really in depth, the crime itself. So the people that were interviewed for this documentary were Detective George Harrison. Okay, he was with the Suffolk County Police Department homicide. He was the lead detective in this case. Dr. Howard Adelman, he was the deputy chief medical examiner in 1974. He has since passed away. Joel Martin, who is a Long Island journalist and author. He has been in a ton of things respective to this case. He is one of the people who was at the home when Lorraine and Ed Warren were there and conducted the seance. He was there when that happened. He was interviewed many times over the years about this case. He was also in the documentary My Amityville Nightmare, which is Daniel Lutz's story. So he is, and I will say this just as an aside, I find Joel Martin to be incredibly credible as a witness to the things that he saw. And the reason I say that is because the whole time I was looking into this case again, I found so much stuff to watch, so many things to watch, and I watched it all. The only thing I haven't watched again is the movie, the first movie, and then the remake. But I've watched um, every all the little things in between. Okay. And I will say this about Mr. Martin, his story is consistent every single time. He does not change one detail of his accounting from all of the various interviews, which I find to be credible. Okay. There is Doug Sparrow. He was a WNBC producer. Detective uh, Gerald Gozoloff. He was with the Suffolk County Police Department. Okay. So now we're going to go into what happened at the crime scene. So when Dr. Edelman and the CSI all converged on the scene, okay, they all agreed that the way that they were going to treat the home is that each bedroom was going to be treated as its own separate scene. So what they were going to do is everybody was going to be in one room documenting at a time. So they started in the master bedroom, which then they went to Allison's room, then they went to Mark and John's room, and finally they went to Dawn's room. So they were very methodical in the way that they processed this scene. So it wasn't like there was 11 billion people all all over the house at all various different times, right? So they were all working cohesively, collecting the evidence, documenting the scene, taking the pictures, all of the things, one bedroom at a time. Okay. So Dr. Edelman's initial impressions were that Mr. Defeo Sr. was shot twice in the back, and Louise was shot twice, and she was covered. And I'm not going to show the crime scenes pictures, that those of the bodies in this um, presentation. I just not going to do it. So she was covered up. Mr. Defeo was not. He was in a undershirt, a tank top undershirt, and underwear. Mark, or excuse me, Allison, she was shot in the face. And Dr. Edelman's impression was that because of the way her face was facing, that she was awake and knew who shot her. And he noted that I'm going to push play on this, that there was this puzzle being done in her bedroom, and it was on this really, like, it's right here. Hold on, let me pause this real quick. It's right here. This is Allison's room. See, she's working on a puzzle in her room, and as you can see, that's not an incredibly stable table by any stretch of the imagination. And had there been a struggle, he felt that this would have most certainly been disturbed, and yet it wasn't. Okay, so that was his impression. He noted that Mark was shot once in the back, John was shot once in the back, and his impression was that the shooter stood at the sort of end of the room, because the boys' beds were two twin beds, and they were, opposite sides of the room, and that the shooter stood sort of at the end of their beds, in between them, right, at the footboards, and shot each boy one after the other with hardly any adjustment, just by simply turning the gun. That is the way that was his impressions. Dawn was shot once in the back of the head. And in this documentary, Detective Sullivan notes, quote, John and Mark were laying on their stomach, holding a pillow, almost like they knew what was coming. Now, one of the things that Dr. Edelman also did say was that, again, all of the bodies were found the same way. Okay. They were all found laying on their stomachs with their arms over their head, sort of like some of their couple of the bodies had the arms like kind of on the pillow. A couple, one or two of them, I think, had it underneath the pillow. But by which I have to say is interesting to have six people laying in the same position. I don't know what the statistics are on that, but it is an interesting. We're going to get to that, Christine. We're going to get to it. Um, but that is interesting to note that they were all essentially found the same way. And so everybody is like I said, the news is out, the reporters are out front, the neighbors are out front, and Mr. Sparrow talks about as they're bringing out the bodies. And remember now, they are processing each room one at a time. Okay. So they're bringing the bodies out one room at a time. And they brought out one of the children's bodies, and they knew it was a child because the body bag was smaller. And then also the body bag fell, and they could see that it was a child. And the other journalist who was there but these are just the ones that were interviewed for this specific documentary. Mr. Martin saw a group of kids sort of milling around, and he asked, what happened, guys? And one of the kids said, quote, "Ronnie shot his family." Okay. So for the most part, the documentary continues much the same way as I relate it, except for, okay, now this is the drain, the sewer drain where they found stuff that that Butch had dumped. There was a towel, bloody clothes, unspent bullets, the scabbard for the rifle, and it was the towel, the scabbard, the bullets, and the clothes. I said all that. Yes. Okay. Now, this is where Shattered Hopes differs from almost everything else that you will see with respect to this crime. Okay. At the very beginning of the documentary, there's this I don't know what you call it, not commentary, but it's like a note. Okay. And this part is accurate. It's just an interest. It doesn't quite all the way fit. Okay. So in this version, they're talking, instead of this Louis Fellini, it is Tony Matteo, who then it becomes Tony Mazzeo. But in the official reports, he is referred to as Mr. Lee. Okay. And apparently, the reason that who Tony Mazzeo was a made guy with the mob. Okay. And he was friends with Ron Sr. And the motive, allegedly, according to Butch, was that a few days or maybe a week prior to what happened, Tony Mazzeo was at the dealership, Mike Brigante's dealership, Brigante car Buick, okay? And that Tony Mazzeo and Butch get into um okay, then Tony okay, so Tony Mazzeo and Butch get into an argument, and Butch calls Mr. Mazzeo a cocksucker. Okay, so this is what Butch says is the motive for um, Tony Mazzeo coming and annihilating Butch's entire family. Not the person that actually called him that, but the family. Okay, now Detective Gozoloff does back this version up because he does talk about the crime scene being processed and the phone rings. And I want to show you guys this because this goes into something that I was telling you guys about last week. Oh, let me get to the dining room again. Here it is. All right. So you guys see on your screen, give you just a second because I'm watching it. I'm watching myself rewind. All right. Can you see the candelabra there on the I think it's I don't know what they call that, but whatever that's called. Next to it there is a red phone. Okay? This is the red phone, the dining room extension that it has been alleged only Ron Defeo Sr. knew the number to, and this is the phone that he would call to check up on Louise. Okay? That's that phone. That is the phone that Detective Gozoloff says rings, and he answers it. And Tony Mazzeo identifies himself. And then once he realizes, well, no, it was James It was either, it's kind of confusing in the documentary, but either Detective Gozoloff or James Burleski answers the phone. Okay. And Tony Mazzeo identifies himself. And once he realizes that he was speaking to cops, he hung up. Now, in this documentary, this is when Butch is taken into protective custody. So sometime between 8:15 and 8:30, that is when this phone call takes place. And that is what causes the detectives to think that there's some type of situation connection going on. And that's when they take Butch into protective custody. Okay. So, but again, I don't understand why he is referred to in one book as Louis Fellini, and then in this account, he is referred to as Tony Mazzeo, and in the official documents, he is referred to as Mr. Lee. It's very confusing, and I have no explanation for it. Okay. So at about 11:30 p.m., the Suffolk County homicide gets a call from Nassau County, and they're reporting a call that they got. And this is what it's, quote, an unknown caller called in and states he was at a bar in Massapequa the day before on November 12th, and that he had met Danny Marcella. Danny Marcella stated that he was going to kill the entire Defeo family. There was an extensive investigation done about this, and it turned out to be a dead end. Now, Detective Gozoloff does say Butch admits that he's got guns. He can't remember if his father had taken them away because he'd gotten in trouble with his probation officer. Quote, didn't really know how they worked. He said that Butch told him that the gun went off at this guy Norm's house and that the bullet was lodged in the floor, which turns out to be Norm's house is Steve Hicks's house, and he lives at 40 Ocean Avenue. And the round was recovered 2 days later after Butch's arrest, and it did match the Marlin that ended up being the murder weapon. Okay. Now, Alfred Della Penna was a Suffolk County ballistic detective, and he determined the bullets matched the Marlin gun because as they're processing the crime scene, okay, obviously there's the ballistics detective is not going to be able to see the bullets that are inside of the body, but there were bullets that were lodged in the mattresses. And pay attention and put a like a little asterisk in your brain because that's going to come up later. The mattresses, okay, just keep that somewhere. Put it in a file, okay. Um, but one bullet had gone through a body and through the mattress and ended up being on the floor um, under the bed. So that's how they sort of determined that this was the murder weapon and all of this. And plus, remember, at the same time, they've taken the autopsies are performed like that. Technically, it would be the next day. It would be November 14th at 1 o'clock in the morning. But they wanted as much information so that they could begin. I mean, they had a family of 6 dead in a home. And so the police wanted whoever it was to be off the streets immediately. Okay. So that's why there was such a rush to get this investigated. Okay. And then that's at 2:30 a.m. That is when detectives from the Suffolk County Homicide, Jack Sherville, found the box of bullets in Butch's bedroom closet. There was 22 caliber bullets and then the 35 caliber Marlin. And they talked to Bobby Kelsky, and Bobby says, quote, Butch could take a gun apart and put it back together blindfolded. Okay. And again, like at 9 a.m., November 14th, 1974, Butch was read his rights. He did waive them, and he said many unflattering things about his family. Now, it was this is sort of when it all starts coming together at one time. Okay. When they find the bullets in Butch's bedroom closet, that was a huge red flag. Then they start talking to Butch and Bobby Kelsky, but mainly Butch. And hang on, just give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry. So they're talking to Butch, and Butch is still like saying, no, it's you got to go get Tony Mazzeo. He did it. He did it. He did it. And then he starts. Then they start. Then they start asking him questions that are sort of run of the mill questions. Okay, and it comes out that evening, Butch did not eat dinner. Okay, that he did not eat. He was there when dinner was served. He didn't eat the dinner that Louise cooked. So one of the theories in the beginning was that perhaps he had drugged them at dinner time. Okay, and that turned out to not go anywhere because the autopsy reports show that they were not drugged. Okay, and so detective Gosler says to him, or goes, I cannot say his name. Gozaloff says to him, talks to him about it. And this is what Detective Gozaloff says Butch said. He said, quote, you know why I didn't eat? Because my mother liked to make this fancy stuff. I like hot dogs and hamburgers. And you know what? If something looks like shit and it smells like shit, it's going to taste like shit. Okay, Detective Gozloff also says that this is a quote from sort of hearsay. It is hearsay from Detective Gozloff as to what Butch said. He said, quote, John and Mark were a couple of filthy animals. Now, Ryan Kazenbach says that Butch said, quote, his biggest beef with Dawn was that she played her music way too loud. But Detective Gozaloff goes a little further and said, and says, quote, "He said she played N-word music, that fucking N-word music." Okay. This okay, so then after being confronted with bullets, that's when Butch um now changes the story, and he says that Tony Mazzeo made him um kill. Now, the problem with this for the detectives, in the detectives' minds, was that um, all of the family members were wearing their PJs. So the issue of time is going to be a huge a factor here, and so they're going to Butch, and they're saying, so it couldn't have happened at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Butch, because they were in their PJs still. And they continue to press this time issue until Butch agrees that it happened between 2 and 4 a.m. And first he says he hid in the closet and heard it all. Then he says he woke me up and forced me to watch. Quote, John's foot was twitching. Then finally, Butch admits that he killed his family after being at the police station for like 12 to 14 hours. He draws a diagram that leads detectives to Richmond Avenue, where the Marlin rifle was recovered at the dock under 35 feet of water. He then mapped out the location of where he disposed of the spent shell casings, the bloody clothing, towels, the whole box of unspent ammo, and the scabbard for the rifle. And he said that he dumped that on his way to work on the morning of November 14th. Okay. I need a drink. This was a lot. Okay. Christine, I don't know what that music would be. I don't know what the detective was referring to. That was a direct quote, but it was these comments coupled with the ammunition being found in his closet. That is when the detectives started really looking at Butch as a serious um, suspect. So yeah. Um, now, now we're going to get into Geraldine Gates. Okay. Hey, RR. I'm hope I'm not mispronouncing your name. Welcome. Good to see you. Now, you guys all remember who Geraldine is. All right. So Geraldine is someone who claims that she was married to Butch at the time of the murders, that she has firsthand knowledge of things, that she knew the Defeos, that she witnessed some things, and yada yada yada. Okay, well, we've gone over the pros and the cons, as it were, with Miss Geraldine, because the truth of the matter is, if you actually oh, I haven't done anything. I just pushed pause on it, Christine. I haven't made it bigger or anything. I just left it. Um, that's just the quality of the picture. I'm sorry. So, anyway, I've already gone over the cons to why it's okay. I don't think that Geraldine was married or knew Butch in 1974. I'm just going to state that flat out. There's too many documents. No, the asterisk. Okay, hold on. I got to answer Christine. No, the asterisk is not about the candelabra. The asterisk is about the mattresses. Remember that they are, the crime scene techs are removing bullets from the mattresses or looking to see if there were bullets in the mattresses. Just keep that in the back of your mind for a while. Put it in a file. I'll remind you later when it's necessary, but just keep it there. Just put a pin in that. Okay. There is far more proof through documents that that support that yes, Geraldine was married to Butch, but not until 1986, not in 1974, and there is nothing to support that she knew the Defeos or Butch prior to 1985. Now, that being said, she was married to Butch in 1986, and she did visit Butch. So it is entirely possible that Butch told her this story. Okay. This version that I'm about to tell you guys right now. It's very possible that he told her that. But it is what's not possible is what this documentary asserts, which is that 6 days after all of this takes place is when Geraldine gets to see Butch for the very first time. Okay? Because she didn't know him 6 days after the murders. All right? That's what's not possible. She could not have heard this story firsthand in 1974. The earliest that she could have heard it from him would be sometime in 1985, because that is when they met. And the documents that support this are the marriage license, number one, but number two, their divorce license, or their divorce decree, which it's interesting that they were even divorced because the marriage wasn't valid to begin with, because Geraldine was married to somebody else at the time when she married Butch Defeo in jail or in prison in 1986. So there you go. But in that divorce decree, they both say that they met each other in 1985. So there you go. Now, she says, give me just one quick second. One quick second. Well, I don't know why they got a divorce, to be quite frank, because the marriage wasn't legal. But I do know that for Butch's part, I think he wanted to marry somebody else, and just in case that the marriage may have been legal, he wanted a legal divorce because he intended to marry somebody else. So that's I have just one of those things. All right, so now when she goes to see Butch, she says that his face was all beat up. Okay, let me scroll, because I want you to see this. Okay, this is Butch Defeo's mugshot. The date is right there. That date is November 14th, 1974. Now, granted, this is a black and white picture, but if she were able to say that his face was beat up, this is one of the allegations that's made, is that basically the Suffolk County homicide detectives basically beat a confession out of Butch and Bobby Kelsey. Like, they took turns. Okay. So, um, to me, I have a hard time believing this, because, obviously, look at his face. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rewind this all the way to the beginning, and I'm just going to let it play in the background while I talk. That way you guys can have something to look at and while I talk. Okay. So, according to Geraldine in this documentary, this is going to be the first time that she heard Butch's firsthand account of what happened. And this is when the allegation that Dawn was an accomplice would surface. So, what happened is Dawn insisted it be done that night. Let me go back a little bit though. How Butch even got to the Defeo's house. Let's start there. Okay. Um so Butch claims that on the evening of November 13th, 1974, he left work at Brigante car Buick dealership, or Buick, I think is what it was called, and headed home to the house to the home he shared with Geraldine and her kids. Let me see if I can make this loop. Um, I'll just play it on slow-mo. That's what I'll do. There. So it'll go slow. Okay. So, he arrives home in New Jersey to the home he shared with Geraldine. Okay, because they were married, and according to Geraldine in 1974. And he gets a phone call like shortly after he arrived, and it is Louise Defeo, and she is in a panic. She's upset. Um, this is the allegation. Ron Sr. was on a terror that day. He was beating just about everybody in the house. He was, he beat up Louise. He's, his main targets, according to Geraldine, had always been Louise, Butch, and Dawn. But on this particular evening, he was terrorizing the entire family. Okay. And so Louise calls him because Dawn has snapped, and she and Ron Sr. are fighting. So, according to Butch, he gets into the car and drives at breakneck speed from New Jersey to Amityville, New York, and he arrives and breaks up this fight. Okay. And the people that are at the home, obviously the entire Defeo family is there, but there are people there with Butch, Bobby Kelsky, and Augie De Janeiro. All right. And they're all down in the basement. And this is when Dawn says, it's got to be done this night. It's got to be done tonight. We can make it look like a botched robbery. So this is where the plan starts to hatch. All right. And this is what they all decide, that Augie would be the lookout, and that he would go outside and look out, and that Dawn, Butch, and Bobby would go upstairs, and that someone would take the dog outside because Shaggy hated Butch and Butch hated Shaggy, and Butch was concerned that the dog may possibly try to intervene. And first, they go to Ronnie Sr. and Louise's bedroom, and there's a shot fired. Louise wakes up, Allison does too. So Dawn goes over to Allison's room and tells the all hollers through the door that you know you guys stay in that bed or they're going to get a beating of a lifetime. Those are the words that were used. And as this is happening, Ronnie Sr. has now come out of the bedroom and is shot a second time in the hallway by Butch. And Louise is in there freaking out, and Bobby Kelsky shoots her with a handgun. And Butch is angry that Bobby shot his mom, but Bobby runs downstairs and out the door. And Butch also claims at some point prior to all of this, Augie had also chickened out and left the house. So then Butch instructs Dawn to get the kids ready and take them to Grandpa's, which would be Mike Brigante Sr. Butch leaves to get Bobby because he needs to help getting Ronnie Sr. back into the bed because Mr. Defeo was like 200 and something, like 270 pounds or something like that. And he's now laying in the hall. Okay. So Butch leaves. And it's at this point, while Butch is driving around looking for Bobby, that Dawn kills Allison, John, and Mark. And Butch says he was gone for about 30 minutes. And as he is returning back to the home, because he's been driving around Amityville. Okay, all right, hold on just a second. Let me get to the pictures then. What pictures do you need to see, Christine? Skins of what? Which one? Look. Oh, of the crime scene? Okay. So, hold on. This is a diagram of the Defeo home. It is a diagram. It is not an actual representation of the actual size of the home or of the it's a rough sketch. This is where all of the bodies were located. On the two bodies that are together are Louise Defeo and Ronnie Defeo Sr. They were a married couple, so they slept in the same bed. Then on the third floor, this is the bottom picture. This is Dawn Defeo. This is how she was found in her bed. The bedroom across from the parents' bedroom is Allison's bedroom. And then next door to her bedroom is John and Mark Defeo's bedroom. So that's the diagram. And now I've made it go too slow. Okay. This is the crime scene log. It's very, I mean, even if I paused it for 50, 1100 years, you wouldn't be, it's hard to read because it's a photocopy. This is, they've pulled back carpet in, I think that's the master bedroom. And there's an envelope underneath. It looks like a card. I don't think it was anything of any significance, but it was part of the crime scene photo. So I just wanted to show you guys. This is the Defeo's dining room. Okay. And the reason I wanted to show this is because in the episode prior, we talked about this red phone, that it was a separate phone number than the rest of the house. And this is the phone that Ronald Defeo Sr. would call Louise Defeo on to check in on her. He's the only one who knew this phone number. Okay. This is Allison's bedroom. And the reason I showed this is because, as you can see, she's working on a fairly significant sized puzzle there, and it's very precariously perched on this. I don't even know. I wouldn't even say that's a table. It looks like a box. And that's The puzzle is on the table or box or whatever that is. It looks like it's like a piece of plywood that she's putting it together on. And down here, it looks like another puzzle that she's working on. I'm not exactly sure what that is, or a hook rug or something. I mean, these are pictures from 1974. So then the quality is not the best, but it's a picture. It's not anything. This is inside the closet of Ronnie Defeo Jr.'s bedroom. Okay. This here is a sewer grate. Ugh, hold on a second. I meant to push pause. All right. God dang it. Okay. This is the sewer grate. This is where the towel, inside that sewer grate is leaves. Those are leaves. It's fall. It's November in New York. Those are just leaves. That's all that is. Is that the picture you guys wanted me to stop? It's leaves. It's leaves. Okay. This is that same sewer grate, and it looks like leaves and a towel or a shirt or something that's in there. That's also leaves. This looks like what they pulled out of the sewer to take a picture of. It's kind of hard to tell. But that's what the rifle goes into. It's the case for the rifle. And there's Butch. Are we good now? November. This was November. That's not a thong. Okay. Let me rewind it. I don't think that that's a thong. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but first of all, the dimensions are wrong for a thong. Okay, like, but now we're good. No, it wasn't built on a cemetery. It's some item of clothing or a towel or a pillowcase that was used to clean up the blood. Okay. So as Butch is driving around Amityville, he's having a hard time locating Bobby Kelsky. So he is headed back to the house, and he is driving up Ocean Avenue when he sees Bobby Kelsky coming in the opposite direction. He sort of blocks him in and convinces him to come back to the house. And Bobby refuses to come. Bobby does, but he refuses to come back. He refuses to come upstairs. All right. And Butch is livid because when he gets there, he sees that Dawn has not left with the kids. Okay. So Butch goes upstairs. Bobby is waiting in the foyer. And at some point, Bobby leaves again. Now, this is when, because you have to remember how the house is laid out. So on that first, once you go up the stairs on the second floor are Allison, Mark, and John's bedroom, right? And then obviously the parents' bedroom. And then Dawn's room is on the third floor. So he goes and he's checking on the kids. And when he realizes that they're dead, they've been shot, okay? And now he's livid. Okay, so he goes up to the third floor to confront Dawn. And Dawn explains that she did it because she feared that the kids would talk and tell the police what really happened. So Dawn and Butch begin pushing and shoving each other. Butch grabs the Marlin rifle and the two struggle over the gun. Butch ends up winning out and he sort of pushes Dawn onto the bed and he shoots her in the back of the head. And this is when Butch sets about burning the second set of books for the dealership in the fireplace so that there can be, because there's a ledger that Mr. Defeo kept of the connections between the dealership and the mob. And he also says that Bobby Kelsky came back to help clean up and stage the crime scene. Butch says that Bobby is the one that disposed of the 35 caliber Marlin. Bobby drove to Brooklyn with his 38 revolver to Frank Boyd's home. Boyd was a Brigante dealership employee. Now, Rick Osuna claims he located an affirmation that states that a Frank Boyd melted down a Colt Python. Butch arrives at work at 6:30 in the morning, and Butch makes several calls home trying to reach his parents. And the last phone call was at 2:30 p.m., and he made that in front of Secretary Lucy Birkin, who was a 14-year employee of Brigante Car Buick. And Rick Osuna says that in his interview with Butch, Suffolk County officers beat him and Bobby for 20 hours before obtaining the 8-page confession. And Butch says he asked for an attorney. And allegedly, there was one hired by the family by the name of Richard Weisling, who was a relative, and he was sent by Mike Brigante. And he was allegedly given the runaround. Now, Gloria Gangitano says the day after the murders, or it could have, see, for a lot of people, they don't, the days of the murder and the day that they found out about the murders are kind of fuzzy, because technically they would have found out on the 14th of November. So it's difficult to understand when they say either the day of or the day after, what day they're actually referring to. So sometime along the 13th, the 14th, or the 15th, somewhere in that vicinity, she says that her husband was told that Butch was a prime suspect. Then Mr. Nanowitz was even dubious that Butch Defeo was solely responsible. He said, quote, Butch was more of a follower than a leader. Quote, 2 policemen came to the house and they were asking about another gun. Now, my wife did make a statement that being that close in the house, she did move various articles like guns in drawers and stuff, but she doesn't really have any knowledge to what the guns were. So this is where Ryan Kazenbach comes up with this assertion that there are 2 different bullets located in the they had a dog Molson man. Shaggy was his name. There's pictures of him. I'll get the pictures for next time. But yeah, they had a dog. Okay, so I forgot what I was going to say. So Ryan Kazenbach, this is when he makes this assertion that there were 2 different bullets found in Louise Defeo. Okay. And he cites this document written in the ballistic detective's handwriting, De La Pena, detailing the description of this bullet. It's listed as item number 3, and the description goes like this: 8 lines and grooves remaining, weighs 169 grains, diameter of 0.363. The other bullet fragments removed from the other Defeo victims are described as 12 lines and grooves remaining are between 0.335 to 0.359 in diameter and weigh between 137 grains and 170 grains. And so Ryan Kazenbach asserts that that's more consistent with a 38 caliber handgun, which is what uh, Butch and Geraldine claim was the second murder weapon. Good night, nonstop, Mom. See you in the morning. Okay. So there's some counter evidence to all of this, right? Okay. So first we'll start with the phone call to Butch in New Jersey at Geraldine's. All right. First of all, this house was 2 hours away. Butch was on probation and wouldn't have even been allowed to leave the area. Also, the address listed on his probation paperwork is 112 Ocean Avenue. Also, Butch and the people he worked with testified he had not gone to work the day before the murders, making the claim that he drove to New Jersey after work and immediately got a call from Louise difficult to believe. The fight he was called to break up had been going on for quite some time, so why would Louise call Butch to drive 2 hours away? And Louise told her friends that Butch was the one that was the troublemaker in the family, making it unlikely that she would call him to intervene and bring peace. And as far as this item number 33, this bullet that doesn't, that Ryan asserts that is a different bullet than the other bullets, making it seem as there's another handgun, another gun used, and this time it would be a handgun, right? So basically, I don't know a whole lot about, like, I know how to load a gun and I know how to shoot a gun, and that's it, a handgun. Anything about rifles, and I damn sure don't know anything about ballistics or how much they weigh. But one of the things that Facebook page, Amityville Murders Fact Checker, fact checking revisionist claims, they go into great detail about the weight of this bullet and that Ryan has it backwards, that a bullet for a rifle would actually weigh more than a bullet for a 38 caliber revolver, and they go into great detail about it and explain it very well, that it's likely that it did come from the Marlin, and that there was only ever one murder weapon. Then we have the 1986 Newsday article. So Butch and Geraldine gave an interview to Newsday, okay? And in that news article, that the account they give is this. So Butch claimed that he drove to Amityville with his brother-in-law, Richard Raimondo. After arriving, Butch stopped Don from stabbing Ronnie Sr. Don was sent away to calm down. Butch and Raimondo went to the basement to watch TV. They heard shots fired. Claimed Don shot Mr. Defeo Sr. and then went to bed. Louise then killed all of the children in bed, including Don. She then shot herself once. They said that Louise was holding a revolver in her hand against her chin, but failed to pull the trigger. Butch, so angry with her for killing the kids, picked up the revolver and killed her. And also, Newsday could never ever substantiate that a Richard Raimondo existed, because it's likely a figment of Geraldine and Butch's imagination. And then I already went over the high hopes. Now, these are my opinions. I can't find any evidence So anaphylaxis, and let me highlight you because this is important. So this Facebook, um, I guess it's a page. It's not really it's a page, a public page. Their assertion is that the reason that that item number 33 weighs more than some of the other fragments that were recovered, either from the bodies or like the mattress or whatever. But item number 33 specifically was recovered from Louise Defeo's body. Their assertion is that the reason it weighs more actually lends more credence that it came from a rifle, a 35 caliber Marlin. It's more likely that by the weight and the way that what's left of it and all that, the description, the diameter, that it's more reasonable that it came from, that it is a bullet fragment from the 35 caliber Marlin rifle than it is from a 38 caliber revolver. That's what I am curious about. Is that true? Is their assertion correct? No, they were not homemade bullets because there's boxes of the ammunition, Heather, whatever. So they were purchased. But again, like in 1974, it's not like you had to like really, I mean, they weren't as strict about, the gun laws and, registering and keeping track of all the things, so I, yeah. So for me, I do this. I will say this. I do struggle with it. It's not impossible for Butch to be the sole perpetrator. Okay, it's not impossible, but I it's it is a little bit hard to believe given the layout of the home. Okay, so think about it. So let's go back. I'll pause it on the layout of the house. Now, obviously, the drawing is not, to scale and all of that, but it is a fairly good representation of what, of the way that the home was and the way that it was laid out. Okay. And if you believe that this is the way that most everybody feels that the crime took place. That Butch climbed the stairs, and first he went into his parents' room because they would be the biggest threats. So he shot them both. He then crosses the hallway and shoots Allison once, and then goes next door, stands at the foot of in between. So he stands at in between both feet of the bed, right? And shoots Mark and John first. Now, Mark played football. He was an athletic kiddo. Could he have given Butch, he could have put up a fight. Could he have given Butch 100% of a run for his money? I don't know, but he probably would have put up a hell of a fight. It would have been a struggle for sure. The thing is that Mark's ankle was broken, which is why in some of the crime scene and all the crime scene photos, you'll see a wheelchair because he broke his ankle. So at that time, he would not have been a threat. But then you have up on the third floor, there are two bedrooms. One is Dawn's and the other one is Butch. She was killed there. The assertion is, the theory is that she was killed last. This is the part that I struggle with because in my mind, the two biggest threats were eliminated first, Louise and Ron Sr. Ron Sr. being the ultimate, the biggest threat, right, to stopping or preventing this. Because there were knives that were recovered from the Defeo's bedroom. So even if he wasn't armed with a gun, he at least had some type of weapon in his room, right? So he would have been the biggest obstacle. Okay. Allison is older than both John and Mark. John is the youngest, is the baby. Then Mark, then Allison, then Dawn, and then Butch, right? Butch is the oldest. Okay. So the boys are not really going to be that much of a threat. But Dawn could have been a potential threat to Butch. So, oh, is it Lands? Lands and Grooves? Okay. Well, the ballistics detective said that based on the shell casings that were recovered from the sewage ditch, also the bullet fragments that were recovered from the bodies, and then there was the one bullet fragment that went through a body and landed under the bed. He determined that they all were fired from the same exact weapon. So, what has never made sense to me is that, in my opinion, after the parents, Dawn would have been the next biggest threat. I knew what you meant, babe. I know what you meant. I knew you meant Grooves. Would have been the next biggest threat, right? The next person who was most capable of putting up a fight. I don't understand how he was able to go from room to room to room that way without waking anybody up, not past the parents. That's what I don't understand, is that it's not impossible. The other part that has always just made me somewhat skeptical is the position that the bodies were found in. So Louise was completely covered up. And you guys can all work the Googles. If you want to find the autopsy photos, you're perfectly capable of doing it. When you do, you will see that the covers are all the way up on Louise. I mean, you can barely see her head on the pillow in the picture. Conversely, Mr. Defeo is not covered up at all. Okay? And what's interesting to me is the fact that they're all of them are on their stomachs, which that's to have everybody in the same exact position is odd to me. Everybody sleeping on their stomachs with their hands above their heads, either on top of or underneath the pillows. They were all found on their stomach. Allison was shot in her face. But there are pictures of, I know which ones you're talking about. They were all turned over after the fact and photographed again, but they were all photographed the first time in the same position. All of them were found on their stomachs. They were all turned over and photographed again. So they were initially photographed in their original positions. Then they were all turned over and photographed again. So, yes. Now, this is just a little teaser for when we go into the haunting part of it. Okay. So will you do me, guys? I don't like to do polls, and it's late and I'm too lazy to type a poll. So we're just going to do the old school. Put a 1 in the chat if you have seen either the original Amityville Horror or the remake, either the one with Margot Kidder and James Brolin, or the one with, I forget what her name is, and the delicious Ryan Reynolds, if you've seen the movie. Please put a 1 in the chat too if you haven't. Christine, 0 was not an option, ma'am. Please. Blocked and reported. There you go, too. Okay. So most of you guys have seen the movie. Okay. The movie is obviously based on George and Kathy. They're the second owners of the home. Technically, they'd be the third. Really, the Defeos are the second owners. But after the tragedy, these were the first couple that moved into the home after the murders, was George and Kathy Lutz with their kiddos. Okay. So George and Kathy Lutz have always claimed, hey, Broken Justice, good to see you, have always claimed that when they bought the home, that they bought some of the furniture, including the mattresses and beds that the Defeo slept in. This is let me just say this. That can't be true. The mattresses part, because the mattresses were torn apart looking for bullets. There's that asterisk. So that's just a little teaser for the next, not the next episode, but the episode after that. Because the next episode I want to talk, we're going to go through the trial. Because if you think that the night of, the 13th into the 14th is a mess and the different accounts, wait till we get to the trial, because that's messed up too. That's messed up too. And the thing that makes this so difficult is that, but let me tell you who makes this case difficult. Butch Defeo makes this case difficult. Butch Defeo has told many stories over the years. He's told different versions. I mean, are you talking about Molson Man, like Amity 2? Are you talking about, isn't it Amityville 2? Isn't that one the possession? There's some controversy around that, around number 2. And I will talk about that next time. But yes, there's some controversy. Oh, bless it, Christine G. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. I was so intent on telling you guys the story. I was not paying attention to chat. And I happened to look up for like a hot second, and I see Christine. Wait. And I feel awful now because I should have been paying attention to chat. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm sorry. But yeah, there are little itty bitty seeds of, you want to come up and talk about it when we go through all the through that part, Molson Man, about the movies and stuff. When we go through the hoax part, we can do that if you want to come up. So yeah, sometimes there's like a seed of doubt that will creep in, like a tiny, but it's not impossible for it to have happened exactly the way that the state says it did. It's not impossible. It's just, there are some very, very interesting, just weird, odd little cool things about the crime scene. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the bodies, everybody being on their stomachs, nobody having really moved in any meaningful way. Like I can understand that maybe Allison, because she was shot in the face, perhaps she turned her head and was shot. The boys were shot in the back. Um, and Dawn was shot in the back of the head. And there was not a silencer used. And I had at one point considered maybe there is something missing from when they recovered, like the box of bullets, the spent casings, all that stuff went from the sewer, from the sewer grate. That that maybe there was a different, a secondary dump site that he used a pillow. But then I was thinking about that too, and as a silencer, but I feel like an anaphylaxis to be the person to ask about this, but if it would seem to me you can only shoot through a pillow once in order for it to be effective. Once you've put a hole through it, right? Is it a one and done type of thing? I don't know these things. The other thing that I want to just clear up real quick is this thing about in the movies, this 3:15 a.m. Okay. By the time that Butch went to the bar, brought those two other guys back to the house with him, they call 911. The first officer arrives, then calls the Suffolk County homicide to come out, and all of this. We're talking about like between 2 and 4 a.m. on the 13th. So 2 p.m. would be 2 or 4 p.m. would be like what, 12 hours, right? So then you're talking about another 2 hours is at 6:30 whenever he goes to the bar, and they don't really start arriving on scene till like 7. So we're talking what, 13, 14 hours at this point that the bodies have been sitting in a home. And the officers all say they immediately smelled death, right? Um, I forgot where I was going with that. He accused Dawn of killing all of the kids, Mrs. O. He has accused Dawn of killing Allison, Mark, and John. And he killed Allison. But now I forgot where I was going with that. Crap. It'll come back to me later. Sorry, whoever's listening on the replay, if you made it this far, good on you, because at this point I've lost the plot. As to what my whole point of that was. I don't remember now. I had an excellent point to make for how long the boys were sitting, or how long the bodies had been sitting. I don't know what that excellent point was. It's completely gone out of my brain. Completely. It'll come back to me. Oh, the 3:15. Okay. So by the time the medical examiner gets there and he removes the body, all the photographs are being taken. Okay. And then they're removed from the home. The bodies are removed from the home. They're driven to the medical examiner's office awaiting autopsy, which takes place at 1 a.m. the 14th. Okay. It would have been, and Dr. Edelman does say this in that Shattered Hopes documentary. He doesn't know where this specific 3:15 came from, because he's never said, he wouldn't be able to, with any, as they say, medical degree, degree of medical certainty, be able to determine precisely when the Defeos died. That's why their time of death is listed as between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. So this 3:15, that is something that has been repeated over and over and over again. And I worked really, really hard to try to track down the source of the 3:15 a.m. And the closest I've come is Lorraine Warren speaking about going to the home in Amityville in, I think they were there in 1976 and doing the seance. And she said that the connection that she and her husband have to that home and the events that occurred is that Ed's mother died at 3:15 a.m. But I can't figure out why she thinks that's a connection. Do you know what I'm saying? That 3:15 had to come from somewhere, and I have tried so hard to figure out where that came from because it's an integral part in the movie. Remember when you're watching the movie, it doesn't matter which version you watch, whether you're watching the original 1970s, whatever it was, with Margot Kidder and James Brolin, or you watch the remake with Ryan Reynolds. George Lutz in the movie wakes up at 3:15 every, on the dot. And then on like the last night that they're there, Kathy Lutz has that, crazy ass dream or whatever that wakes her up at 3:15. But for the most part, George is the one that wakes up at 3:15. And I cannot figure out where that time came from. Who started that? But it's a theme that it's just one of those things, a detail that has just been repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated. And it's not factual. Even if you take away everything, right? It doesn't even matter whether you believe Butch was the sole perpetrator, or Butch and Dawn worked together, or Butch, Dawn, and Bobby, all of, you know what I'm saying? None of that matters. There's no way that they would be able to determine time of death like that in those circumstances. It's not like it was videoed, for Pete's sake. It wasn't recorded. So yeah, that's one of the things that I've been, and this is what happens and why it takes me so long to get through stuff, because I remember these like little tiny details. And when I, am rewatching stuff to, take notes or whatever, then I think about that. And then I start to try to track it. So it's a nightmare. It's a really, it's very difficult to be in my brain. Huh. Interesting. 3:15. How would that be 666 though? I guess, let's see. 1 plus 5 is 6. Plus 3 would be 9. So I don't see how. But it's something that I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna keep following up on it. But anyways, that's just one of the little rabbit holes that I have felt that I've fallen down for, which is has accounted for, l- to be completely honest, like 5% of the reason why that I was tardy on this episode, and why it was on Monday and not a Saturday. The other 95% reason of the lateness for the episode is due to just plain fucking around. Because I'm thinking of like numerology, and if you take the numbers 3, 1, and 5, if you add 3 and 1, you get 4, right? And you add 5, and then you get 9. No, I've always heard that um, the true mark of the devil is 999, and it was mistranslated. But the Warrens believe that um, the devil actually comes in threes as a mock to the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. So, yeah. So there you guys, there's my confession. 5% of tardiness and lateness in episode due to rabbit holes, and 95% of lateness due to, well, that's not even fair. 90% is due to fucking around, and another 5% is due to checking and rechecking to make sure I have it accurate. So there you go. Anyway, thank you guys all for being here. I hope that you enjoyed it. I forgot what I was going to say. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you to the mods. Excuse me. Thank you to the chat. Thank you, Mo, for gifting a membership. Be on the lookout for the members only content and a members only live. I'm going to go live tomorrow night because I really want to do this other trial, and it's a quickie. So that'll be good for in the in between, because tomorrow's, yeah, that could be like Tuesday, Wednesday night. We could probably do that Tuesday and Wednesday night. Now, I don't know. We'll figure something out. And then the trial, Butch Defeo's trial, will be back. We'll be back to our regularly scheduled program, which will be Saturday. And yeah, Sunday is me and Christine G. That's me, doing the interrogation of Susan Boone. So thank you all for being here. It's a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned some things about the case that are new to you and interesting to you. And we'll see y'all tomorrow night. All right, you guys. No, not Cruz. This is a different case, Heather. Different case. I can't figure out what's going on with Cruz. I went to watch the Law and Crime Network, and the description confused me versus what was actually going on in the courtroom. So as soon as I get that part straightened out in my own brain, then maybe I can talk about it a little bit. But anyway, thank you guys so much for being here. And I will talk to y'all tomorrow night. Be safe out here on these streets, and have a good rest of your Monday night and a good day on Tuesday. And I'll see you tomorrow night. Okay, for reals now. Okay, bye.